Okay, so I'm going to talk about the syllabus now. Um, this is Texas history, um, 2053. I- I have to say, my daughter had a fantastic Texas history teacher in seventh grade last year, and I think there's some good Texas history being taught out there. But hopefully, you'll come out of this class with a much more sophisticated understanding, especially of the first half of Texas history. I spend a lot of time in this course on the Spanish period of Texas history, which is kind of forgotten, I think. I have a theory that for a lot of Texans, year zero in Texas history was 1836, the year of the Texas Revolution. And there was a lot of history in Texas before that, especially in the Spanish period. The other thing I focus on in this class a lot are Texas Indians. There were multiple Indian groups in Texas. There wasn't one dominant Indian group in Texas. But the Indian group that I focus on most in the class are the Comanche, who dominated Texas really from the 1740s almost until the 1850s, especially West Texas, and who weren't really, I guess you would say, subjugated until the 1870s. I'm always struck. My grandmother's mother saw Comanche. She grew up in the hill country of Texas. So we'll talk a lot about the Spanish. We'll talk a lot about Texas Indians, especially the Comanche, in this course. Let me go back to just the basic A, B's, and C's of what I'm expecting of you this semester. First of all, there's three readings that I'm asking you to buy. I'm not in San Antonio this week. I'm finishing up a project. I will put some of these books on reserve, but if you can buy them, please buy them. But if you can't, they'll be on reserve beginning next week. One of them is Seeds of Empire by Andrew Torgett, who's a professor at the University of North Texas. If anybody knows Houston, Andrew went to straight Jesuit, really terrific guy. And this book is really a brilliant history of Texas from 1800 until about the 1850s. It's really cutting edge history. And one of the things that makes it so good is that Andrew actually went down into Mexico, into the historical archives in Mexico City and in Saltillo and Monterrey. And actually, he looks at Texas from the point of view of Mexico. Of course, Texas was part of Mexico from 1821 until 1836. So this is a very serious book. I think it's pretty readable. It's not the most readable book ever written, but he writes really well. He tried very hard to make it accessible. It's just a fantastic book, and I hope you enjoy it and learn from it. The other book, we're not going to read Tourget for a couple of weeks. We don't start Tourget for a couple of weeks. In fact, one of the things that I did this semester, I used to use a textbook that was kind of cheap, but now they published like a third edition of it, and it's $50. It's insane. It's ridiculous. It used to cost like $20, and now it costs $50. It's so stupid. So look, I have a kid that just graduated from college. I'm aware of how much books cost. So what I'm going to do for the beginning part of the course in particular is just send you for some basic factual information, background information. I'm going to send you to the internet. I'm just going to post some links and save you some money. The other thing that I'm going to do, I'm going to have you read some historical primary material, but I'll get to that in a second. Okay, the second book is a book by James Crisp. It's called Sleuthing the Alamo, and it's about all the controversies that surround the Alamo. It's surprising. The Alamo is really a site of historical controversy. Just recently, Confederate monuments have become quite controversial. Well, the Alamo, not in the same way. There's a lot of questions about some of the finer details about what happened at the Alamo. No one questions that there was a battle there or anything of the sort. But the big question is Davy Crockett. Did he die? on the day of the Alamo, was executed the next day. And the other reason I want to read Crisp is he talks about how the Alamo is used to create a memory in Texas. And in really important ways to create a memory that justifies the Anglo dominance of Texas after 1836. Remember, before 1836, Texas was ruled by the Spanish and then for a short period, Mexico. And so, one of the things I want to get across in this course is that memory can be very, very political. And if you're at all paying attention to the Confederate monument controversy, uh, you should be aware of that. By the way, I'm going to be on TV next Tuesday being interviewed about Confederate monuments. So, anyway, that's the Chris book. The third book is Gwen's Empire of the Summer Moon. It's a really brilliant book on the Comanche that focuses on the Comanche from the Spanish period until the time in the 1880s when the Comanches were forced out of Texas. The Comanche were forced out of Texas into Oklahoma. You might note, if you're aware of Oklahoma or New Mexico, Arizona, there's a very, very strong Indian presence. And by the way, it's okay to say Indian. It's PC to say Indian. That's what they call themselves. But you don't really have that as much in Texas. And the reason for that is that all Texas Indians were kicked out of Texas. They were expelled from Texas. Not just the Comanche, but all Texas Indians. And this is one of the things, this is one of the trajectory that Gwen talks about. It's a beautifully written book. Most of my students end up really, really loving it. Now there's some, I'm going to post some readings and some movies and other things on the internet for you to read.